Hi everyone, we're live. Welcome. Welcome to the NYC Tech Talent Draft. We are so excited to be here with all of you today. My name is Marissa Feinberg and I'm really excited to be kicking this off. So today we have a lot to cover. We are going to talk about tech. We're going to talk about social impact. And after all, tech is all about innovation. And if you look at the definition of innovation, innovation in its definition is about how to make the world better and how to change things for the greater good. I'm thrilled and honored to be hosting and moderating today, so thank you so much for having me to the NYC EDC and the Tech Talent Draft virtual panel. Just so you know a little bit about myself, I am co-founder of Impact Hub NYC. Impact Hub is part of a global network of social impact co-working event spaces. The particular branch of Impact Hub that I'm a part of is called Mission Hub. I serve as their PR and brand director. Mission Hub, the way I think of it, is like a formula for systems change. We have co-working and event spaces in San Francisco, Berkeley, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York. And we also run the Social Capital Markets Conference called SoCap. So with the Social Capital Markets Conference, we convene people around impact investing. So investing for social impact and investing for change. So when you think about, I want to invest in a company, I want to 10x my impact, you also need to think about the social return on the investment. You need to think about people, planet, profit. So when you are a for-profit social enterprise, you have a mission. You also have a fiduciary duty to your investors. So these are a lot of really interesting topics. So Mission Hub, the background I come from, comes from the social capital markets and impact investing in entrepreneurs on the ground who are at these hubs and making change to bring a full formula for making the world better. So right now, I want to go through and introduce each of our panelists. I want us each to share your name, share a bit about your company and what is the social mission, and share what you are doing in the world. For me, for example, what I'm doing in the world is I consider myself a story champion, and I want good stories about good people and good companies to rise to the top. So let's start out right now, and let's kick it off with Rafael Carti, CEO and co-founder of Callida Energy.
Good afternoon. My name is Rafael Carti. I'm the co-founder of Callida Energy. Basically, what we're about increasing energy optimization. And what does that do in terms of emission? It reduces carbon and it reduces energy use in a sector of our economy, commercial buildings, that represent 20% approximately of all carbon emissions and energy use, and an even greater percentage of electricity. So anything we can do to reduce that number down, it's a potentially huge impact on the environment. What I'm trying to do in the world is really around environmentalism. I've been an environmentalist my whole life. I co-founded a student environmental group in high school. My first job was actually as an intern in college for the EPA, and now I'm really trying to take a career's worth of computer software industry experience and use those tools to really help companies both reduce their carbon, reduce energy use, and save money at the same time, so that it's not a trade-off to do the right thing versus making money. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Rafael. Now, if we turn the mic on over to Melina Tran, Director of Community and Partnerships, Coalition for Queens.
Sure. Hi. Thanks so much, Marissa. So my name is Melina. I'm with C4Q, Coalition for Queens. I oversee community initiatives and partnerships for our organization. And so our mission is to support the growth of the tech industry in Queens and throughout New York City. We believe in making tech diverse, inclusive, and reflective of the New Yorkers who live here. And one of the ways in which we do that is through our flagship tech education program, Access Code, which teaches adults from underrepresented communities how to code and become mobile developers. We also, do things around events, such as Queens Tech Meetup, and we also do a lot of policy and advocacy work. And so my specific role is urban planning and policy. I'm working on a project that is focused on planning for tech's impact on the urban landscape here in Queens. As a small team, I also do a lot related to volunteer and increasing our internal capacity, programming events, and engaging the student population. And so my background has been in urban planning, sort of in a non-traditional sense. I've worked for Department of Transportation. I've done local economic development as it intersects with tech. And so it was natural for me to join C4Q and endeavor on its social mission.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Melina. Now we're going to turn it to Rebecca Novak, Director of Programs and Community Affairs at ScriptEd.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Marissa. So my name is Becca Novak, and I'm the Director of Programs at ScriptEd, and ScriptEd is actually a nonprofit organization. And what we do is we connect students in under-resourced schools with the coding skills and the professional experiences that they need to access tech careers. And we do that in a few ways. We do that by recruiting volunteers from the industry to teach web development classes during the school year at our school partners. And then over the summer, the top kids in our program are eligible for paid internships at tech companies. So the students, they learn all year, they're learning web development, and they're also being exposed to the industry through their relationships with their mentors at their school, through field trips. We do a hackathon twice a year. Our next hackathon is actually coming up on May 9th, and it's going to be at Google. And we really believe that not only do our students deserve these opportunities, and that in order to take advantage of these opportunities, they have to, the tech industry has to get involved, but we also believe that we can kind of fill this need that the tech industry has with local talent. Our students are capable if we just give them the skills. And so I guess my background is I was a teacher in San Francisco, where I was kind of surrounded by all the opportunities of technology, and I saw, my students using tech. I saw, the Google bus came and picked up down the street from my school, and yet the students that I work with really didn't have access to these opportunities. And then at the same time, all these companies are trying to hire and not always finding the talent that they need. So then I moved to New York. I met our founder, Moria, and we started working on this. And so my role currently is I work with our school partners. I supervise our volunteer teams in some cases, kind of do everything it takes. We're a very small team currently, although we're growing, to make opportunities for our students.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And now we're going to introduce Jeff Matthews, CEO and co-founder of Upraised Learning.
Thanks, Marissa, and thanks for having me here. I'm really psyched to be here with the other panelists as well, all great organizations. So quickly, Upraised Learning, we are a company that believes deeply in the power of parents to help raise achievement, especially in disadvantaged communities. So we're an education company, but taking a slightly different approach, focusing on helping parents better support their kids. And we think that's a big untapped opportunity to really change the lives of lots of kids and families. We're based here in New York City, working out of a great space called the Center for Social Innovation in the far west Chelsea, practically East Hoboken. It's a small team. We've been working on this for a year and a half, working now with probably around 50,000 families across the country. It's been a great experience. A little bit about my background. Most recently I worked at Scholastic on the corporate side, so a multi-billion-dollar company. It's great to be down in the trenches building things. This is my second startup, actually. I had a tech startup back in the 90s. And one thing that gets me so excited about what we're doing today is just how easy it is to build great, impactful things. Obviously, it's very easy to build less impactful things, but we're at an incredible time where you can reach so many people through technologies like mobile and push. That's just a very exciting time to be a social entrepreneur because there's so many more tools at our disposal. Began my career as a consultant. I have a PhD in biology, so I think it's like all the other panelists. There's lots of different paths to having really exciting lives and impactful lives in the social entrepreneur space.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff. So now that we have an overview of who our panelists are and what they do, let's talk about what the subject is today. Let's talk about social impact and what that means. You know, there is no one right definition of social impact. I think it means something different to everyone, whether you have a quote-unquote triple bottom line company, people, planet, profit, whether you are a B Corp or a benefit corp, or whether you focus on solutions to global challenges. So I'm going to ask each of you, you know, what makes you a social impact company and why? So let's address each of you in the order we first started. So let's kick it off with Raphael.
Sure. What makes us a social impact company is that every single organization that uses our product will reduce their carbon pollution, even if they don't care about that. Because essentially reducing energy use while they're achieving the same comfort and saving cost also reduces carbon emission. So we look at it as we're doing this because we want to save the planet. But anybody might just buy this product and say, hey, there's an opportunity to save 20% of my energy costs, yet they are also going to be contributing to our goal. The great thing about the way we're approaching it, and many other social enterprises are approaching this, is we're looking at this as a win-win. We're looking to make money for our customers, we're looking to grow a profitable business, and at the same time reduce carbon emission and slow global warming and climate change. So we're doing something where we can look at aligning all of the objectives, our customers, ourselves, and really make this a win-win proposition. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. Now, if we're going to go to our next person here, Melina.
Yep, that's a great question. So C4Q does social impact through its Access Code program. So we teach people from low-income, underrepresented communities how to code, and that's super important, I think, in today's world and digital age. And so I think really for us, it's about creating pathways out of poverty and into the middle class. During our first pilot program, we increased salary by fourfolds from $18,000 to $72,000 for participants. And this year, something that we're doing that's a little bit different, and we're the only nonprofit to be doing this, is we're also targeting people without college degrees. And so in New York, 65% of residents do not have college degrees. And we're hoping to, you know, change their lives and their livelihood by, you know, having them learn how to code and become mobile developers. And I think on a broader sense, I think social impact has a lot to do, you know, through my interaction with social entrepreneurs and people who identify with, you know, social innovation and social impact. It's typically people who are not satisfied with status quo, and so people.
Hi, how's everyone doing for their connection? Mine just dipped out for a moment.
I'm
sorry.
okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Feel free to continue. Apologies.
Oh, no worries. I'm done.
In case someone else's connection dipped out, would you mind repeating the last couple of sentences?
Sure, I'd be happy to just emphasize kind of my last point. Just talking broadly about social impact and its relevance in today's world. In my interactions with people who identify as social entrepreneurs and who do work in social innovation and social impact, I've come to realize that it's a community of people who are entrepreneurs and change makers, people who are movers and shakers, and so it's a really exciting time to be doing this type of work.
Great, thank you so much. So we've got people focused on environmental impact, we've got people focused on equality and education. Let's go to our next panelist and continue the conversation with Rebecca.
Great, yeah, I really love what Melina just said actually about community, because I think a lot of what ScriptEd does, I mean, I feel like we're obviously social impact because we're working directly with students and with schools that do not have the resources that they need. But on top of that, I think a lot about how we are building a community that's going to collectively change the world. So right now we have 300 students enrolled in our programs. We have 80 volunteers that are teaching in our classroom. We're on track to double those numbers for next year. And I just think a lot about how they are going to take their experiences in classrooms, and our students are going to take this knowledge that they know and enter the tech industry, which not only desperately needs their talent, I think it also desperately needs their diversity of opinion and experience. Our kids come from a different background than most of people that we currently see in the industry, and you know, software is more and more how everyone is engaging with the world, and I think that I just am so excited to see what our students create that hasn't been created yet. You know, right now we have a lot of apps and technology that are being created that serve the demographic that is creating the technology, and I think there are a lot of issues and a lot of potential innovations that could be created if we gave more people access and the opportunity to be creators. So I think that not only are we impacting students' lives now, my hope is that we're creating this community of people and stakeholders that are going to change the world in a big way in the future.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Without a community, it's really hard to do anything or make any kind of change. So I'm glad to see that you emphasize the importance of community. Now let's move on to Jeff Matthews. And Jeff, tell us a little bit about your social impact specifically and how you define social impact.
Sure. So like Raphael, we are a public benefit corporation, or so we're a for-profit that explicitly has a social impact goal. I think a common theme that we're hearing is that for a lot of social entrepreneurs is a focus on justice and equity, that it's about bringing opportunities and fairness to all people, and we know how difficult time our current system has at delivering that today. So we're trying to we're not happy with that status quo. For us, technology is a means to an end. It's also an end in itself, as Rebecca and Melina were discussing. But we're using technology really as a way to reach people that have traditionally been pushed away from schools, and that's a lot of parents who for a lot of reasons do not feel have difficulty coming into physical schools, have difficulty getting their schedules to work out with those of the school. Perhaps they had difficult experiences themselves as students and don't have avoid schools, or they don't speak the same language as their kids' teachers. So these are all areas where technology allows us to kind of build bridges and break down barriers that for many years have kept lots of parents away from school. As a result, their children have been significantly disadvantaged because those parents want their kids to succeed just as much as any other parent does, but they just haven't had the resources to do that. So as I said, it's about, for us, social impact. Some of those gaps and even the playing field.
Wonderful. Yes, social equity is a huge part of social impact in terms of everyone having the rights to the same sorts of privileges, values, opportunities as everyone else. And when there's a level playing field, that is where social impact can really thrive. Now, if we think about the term social enterprise, let's talk about that. A social enterprise is an organization that conducts its work by a social mission, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit. And then there's also some new structures like being an official benefit corporation. So how about each of us tackle this term social enterprise for a moment? Think about what that means for those of us in the audience who might be students, who might be interested in joining a social impact organization. What does it mean to be a social enterprise? Is that different from having social impact values? And whoever would like to tackle, please jump in.
Okay, well, I'll jump in here. I think some of the difference is semantic, but I think what's interesting is, and it's not often discussed in the context of social entrepreneurs and social impact, but I think it's just as important. That's about sustainability. I'm sure I can speak for the other panelists that we worry just as much about our impact today as we do tomorrow, because it's no good just having impact today if we can't build organizations that have values and models and sources of support that allow us to continue to support the communities that we're targeting. And I think maybe that's one way to think about the difference. I think there's lots of organizations that for whom social impact is on their list of core values and goals. But I think there's something to be said for a social enterprise that really tries to wrap this kind of tries to tries to innovate and discover a solution to a sustainable impact. And that, I mean, that's a more complicated problem, because that also means having to worry about things like grants and revenue, and there's obviously different legal structures to accommodate that, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit public benefit corporation. It's a whole other discussion. But I think in some ways, I think that's where the true social enterprises are differentiated, because they're really focused on creating sustainable impact over time.
Can I add to that, Marissa? Yeah, I think those comments are great. I think that the key point, I think a really interesting point that Jeff just made is that, you know, a lot of companies in my own area, sustainability and the environment, every major company, whether it's a university, a Fortune 500 company, has sustainability as a value. And they do certain things, like we want to reduce our carbon impact by 20% by next year. And I think one of the key things that Jeff said I want to play on a little bit is the whole focus of the organization. Every big company can put certain effort towards that, but at Callida Energy to innovate towards making that happen. It's your day job. It's not what you do philanthropic participation. It's what you do for a living. So you're focused your entire energy on how do you make better solutions, how do you find ways to get those solutions adopted, how do you partner? I think one thing that I'm seeing now with social impact is with those new entities that are, you know, social enterprises, and we can all sort of work together towards those of us who are social enterprises are doing it kind of every day. Basic reason for being. That's my take. Thanks.
Wonderful. I think something that just came up that we should address. If we talk about sustainability, we have two things we can address. One is that we need to create a sustainable model for change, and that the work that our organization does, we need to have a business model to make revenue while doing our social mission. And two, sustainability, we need to think about how our social impact is solving a problem, and that's usually what happened at the inspiration and the root of creating whatever it is we created. For example, at Impact Hub here, we offer affordable co-working space to social enterprises as they are developing, and that solves a problem of a big hurdle when you start a company, is that you need a space to work and you need funds to pay for the space. So by joining a collective community space at a more affordable cost and having a community that surrounds you, you are able to support your goals. So let's think about sustainability, how to create a sustainable model while doing change. You know, what do you recommend?
I'd love to hop in here, because I think in nonprofit, I think it's becoming more and more common that nonprofits are being encouraged to think about sustainability, but a lot of people have this idea of, I'm going to start a nonprofit and just do good things for kids. I think is a very common thing to do, and I hear from a lot of people that like what we're doing in New York and are interested in doing it in another city. And I think the advice that I give to them over and over again is it's great to have an idea about how to do good work in the world, but you really both need to be being sustainable with how you're supporting yourself and your organization. So making sure that you have the funds to get started, that you have, whether you're mostly funded by grants or you're having fees for the programs that you're running, that you have those things in place. And the business plan, like you said, is really well thought out. And then also, we think a lot about metrics and how we're evaluating our work. And it's easy to say, like, let's do great things for youth. But you can say that you're doing it, and if you don't have the data to back it up and you're not evaluating your programs, you don't actually know that you're doing that work. So we talk a lot about metrics and sustainability and how are we making sure that the impact that we intend to have on our students is actually the impact that we're having. And I think, kind of to speak to the earlier conversation too, the difference between just having a social mission and actually being an enterprise is making sure that that impact is real and long-term, and kind of infused in all the things, all of the different projects that you're taking on. So it can be very easy to get pulled in different directions and to have an idea, but the actual work of making yourself into a business and into a company is difficult, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of thought. So that's what I would say about that.
Great, thanks so much. So, does anyone have any, before we move on to our next topic, anything else that they want to say to students who are learning about social impact, about what social impact is, how it affects your day-to-day, and what would you say to educating a student learning about social impact?
Well, I'll step in here, Marissa, and I would just echo what Rebecca said, which is so important, and that's just we can talk about having positive impact and can feel good about that, but at the end of the day, if we're not able to measure that and see it actually happening, then this is a bit of play acting, right? We're wasting our time, and I think that's to tie this back to tech in some ways. I think that's where tech gives you such the ability to build things and impact people with tech, and then see the impact of that, measure that, and iterate quickly is why I think this intersection of today's tech and tools and technologies with social impact is so powerful, because it actually we're able to measure our impact in ways that social entrepreneurs even 10 years ago never had, and they often were kind of wandering in the dark trying to figure out, they had great theories and great hearts, but that's not enough to know whether you're doing the right thing. So it's just a new day and age, and that's where it's so exciting, this intersection with tech.
Beautiful, and that's a very great point for our particular audience. We have a lot of questions to cover, but let's quickly dive into this question. How does tech enhance your social impact work? Who would like to tackle this question? Feel free to jump in.
I'll take a crack at it. I mean, what we're doing with energy in buildings, we're helping people to use less energy, and in doing so, not make it more uncomfortable. So it doesn't get hotter in the summer, it doesn't get colder in the winter. So with the kind of technology we're using, we're gathering information from the building every 15 minutes, we're modeling it, we're coming out with an optimal control strategy. The way buildings used to run, you couldn't do that in close to real time. So you sometimes had a trade-off where you could save for the environment, but people are going to be uncomfortable. So we're using tech, machine learning technology, data-driven technology, so that we don't have to trade off the cost impact and the environmental impact, and we can kind of bring those together. So that's something which 10 years ago there weren't the sensors, there wasn't the machine learning modeling diffused enough where people could do this as a matter of everyday running their building, and we can do that. So technology definitely can create new opportunities.
Beautiful.
I can talk to this too a little bit. I think the way tech impacts our work is, obviously we're teaching technology, so that's an important part of it. But there are so many resources online now for kids to learn, and I think one of the big challenges of learning to code in schools has been that the technology isn't quite up to speed. And we face those hurdles as an organization. The computers are shut down, or all the software has been wiped. So we have started doing all of our coding education online. So students are using online tools. We're teaching the lessons, but they're using IDEs that are online. And then I think also just the way we've been able to get word out about our work and recruit volunteers has been mostly through meetup groups and a variety of places that the tech community is particularly engaged.
Great. Now let's talk about some career preparation for our audience. So why would you recommend students consider working for companies with a social impact focus? What are some of the benefits? What are the trade-offs? And is there anything you wish you'd known before entering this field? Let's see. I'm going to ask Jeff to tackle this question.
Sure. So I think, good question. In many ways, the life and the rhythms of working as a social entrepreneur are not that different from working as a entrepreneur in any other space. It's often the sensation of doing things that no one else has done before, so you don't know quite how they're done. and being ready to screw things up and fix them. So one difference here, though, is that there's real people at the other end that you're trying to help, and this need to never do harm is paramount. It's one thing to not know whether you're having the impact and needing to iterate and innovate there, but of course you can't do harm. So that raises the stakes a little bit more than a typical just developing the next whatever, the next Twitter or the next consumer app. I think and secondly, the sustainability is a hard point. People haven't figured this out. It's certainly, there are ways to do it, but I think this is really where a lot of the innovation happens. How do you build, how do you create something that's going to be here 10, 20, 100 years from now? And that's a whole new class of problems. This is not about flipping a company in 2 years because you're going to sell it to Facebook. It's about really thinking about the long term. And that's a really interesting set of problems.
Great. Yeah, we're all about long-term change. Very good point. Raphael, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Jeff made a lot of interesting points that apply to sort of entrepreneurship in general versus traditional, as well as the things we do that are mission-driven for impact. I would say trade-offs. I mean, one obvious trade-off is that it may not be the most financially lucrative thing to do right out of school, say like consulting or say, banking. But I think the trade-offs in terms of the personal enrichment, satisfaction, knowing that you're contributing to something are immense. And in addition, it may be more about the long term. If you're the person who gets into a field, mission-driven, and figures out a better way to do something, and you have success and your technology is well adopted, well, now there's an opportunity for a real home run and potentially success beyond just having a job. So I'm not saying we should ever get into it just because we think it's going to be the most adopted app in the world, but if you have the passion for something that you care about, that your work can mean something to you beyond just the dollars, it sometimes means you do more, you push it further, and you get a result that's more transformative for society, for the industry you're targeting, and ultimately for yourself as a person. So I think it's all about, what is your value in life beyond just getting a paycheck? What are you trying to give to the world?
Great. Melina?
Sure. I think Raphael said it really well in terms of, going into an organization or a company that fits with your mission. And I think when you're like tied and invested in an issue and in solving it, I think it can really lead to some amazing results. And I know we have some great stories with our alumni, with the alumni of our program, and I think stories like that resonate really well with like our class and with our staff as well. So I just wanted to share kind of like success stories that have been amazing, and I think that even though kind of like the day-to-day may be tough, it's amazing to see what people are able to achieve. And I wanted to highlight the story of one alumni through our program who is an immigrant, grew up in the largest public housing development in North America, and after Access Code, our coder training program, had transferred to Columbia to study computer science, and then started his own company and was accepted into Y Combinator, which is a prestigious accelerator in San Francisco, as many of you may know. But stories like that, I think, kind of like tie me back to what I'm doing and gets me really excited and makes me believe that there are a lot of talent out there, and if only we can reach out to them and give them the opportunity, we can do amazing things. And so it's stuff like that that gets to me, and hopefully motivates all of you to pursue something that resonates with you.
Melina, that is a great success story, and in fact, that's a great segue to our next question. We think about the rewarding parts, the successful parts of what we do, and the challenges. So it's almost like what we would call a rose and a thorn. If we think about our past experience, what are the roses and what are the thorns? For me, example, I'll start with my experience at Impact Hub. Before we were Impact Hub, we were a company called Green Spaces. And the rose was the really rewarding, very intimate community that we created and everything that we were able to do on our own. But the thorn to me was that being an entrepreneur alone or what some people would call a solopreneur, is really tough, and I really wanted support. So the acquisition of our company and working with Impact Hub was very welcome. So those are the sort of challenges and the wins that we had. How about yourself, from just your day-to-day work to the actual work and the success stories that come out of it, like Melina just described? Rebecca, would you like to go first?
Yes. Yeah, I think we definitely, similar to Melina, I think the rewarding part is absolutely seeing the impact that we've had already, and I'm looking forward to the impact that we will hopefully see when we've been around for a little bit longer. But just already we've had students that have worked at full-time paid internships over the summer at different companies. The really positive feedback we've gotten from our corporate partners as well as from our students. Last summer, our internships were 4 weeks long. This summer, the students are going to be working in companies for 6 weeks, and that was based on feedback from both sides. I think we have a student who she is now a freshman in college, and I kind of talk about her a lot because she just, her name's Lilibeth, and I think she's probably 18 or 19 now, and she's from East Harlem, and she studied coding with us at our school, and now she's studying computer science in college. She interned at Contently, and she interned at Getty Images, I believe. And she just wrote to us the other day because we're having our hackathon, and she wants to come back and volunteer. And she was saying, like, she really wants to get involved in giving access to other young women to this industry because she's very passionate about how there are not enough women in tech. So I think stories like that of like not only the individual impact on the student, but also you know, how they're kind of coming back to this community and how it's been meaningful for them, and they want to have an impact themselves is really rewarding to me personally. I think the challenges are just, I mean, like we're a very small team and we make a lot happen, and so it's a lot of work. So I think it can be challenging actually to, you know, take the time that you need to take care of yourself and also do the work that you need to do. So that's like a personal challenge I'm working on is, you know, doing the things that I need to do so I can come to work and be fresh.
Great. Melina, back to you. You just shared a success story, but it sounds like you have a little more to add as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a startup and nonprofit, I think there are certain constraints. I think we're very unique in our mission. And the program areas and the different services that we provide to people. So in terms of providing coder training, but then also we do a lot in terms of working with the tech industry and like engaging volunteers. And my work is around policy and planning and government relations. And so there are so many things that we'd like to do. And I think what happens when you bring a group of really smart, collaborative people together is that you generate a lot of really good ideas, some that can be implemented in the short term, but then some that are definitely on the horizon. And there are so many things that we'd like to pursue, but it's limited by our capacity. And so for us, it's finding the right fit in terms of candidates who relate to our mission, who are very talented and have high potential. And I mean, I think for us, it's kind of like building the team that we need. When I started, I was the 4th person, and now I would say we have about 8 people. And I think we're adding even more to our team, but it's just a matter of growing consistently and growing with the right people.
Wonderful, thank you. Jeffrey?
Sure. As far as kind of the roses, certainly it's just talking to our users, talking to parents. Whether it's our weekly calls out to our users, and the stories you hear, they're incredibly powerful. And to hear, for example, the mother in Chicago last week, she told me the story of her life migrating from Mexico and how she wanted better for her kid. Breaks your heart. I am hearing an echo, by the way, Marissa. People. But I think on the thorns, I think there's a bit of a problem sometimes. I felt myself when of course, we identify very closely with our missions, and the extent, and you can feel really good on those days when you have that positive impact. But the extent I start to feel like a hero, the flip side of that is when things don't go well, I feel like a kind of a super villain, right? So sometimes there's there's remembering that these are kind of builds on some of Rebecca's comment about keeping some level of perspective on this. These are problems that are bigger than us, and we're doing our best to solve them. And I mean, I think that's actually quite liberating and allows you to take things with a little more sense of humor. You have the up days, you have the down days. Of course, you don't want to do harm, but at the end of the day, these are bigger problems than any of us individually.
It's a very good point that these are problems that are bigger than us. And you mentioned a really funny statement back there. On a good day, you feel like a hero, and on a bad day, you feel like a villain. You know, I definitely feel the same way because not everything always goes as planned, and we all have the best intentions. So speaking of villains, and let's talk about competitors. Let's talk about when other people are in your industry and they're doing something similar to you. What are some of the challenges that you have with your competitors with different aims and imperatives? You know, for example, in our social enterprise small world, a lot of organizations are competing for the same investments, the same grants, the same audience, the same community. And as our world grows, you know, it can grow in a competitive way, or it can grow with a common rising tide, with the pie getting bigger as we all build together. What are some of your views, and who would like to tackle this question first?
I could jump in here a little bit, Melissa. Yeah, I mean, we're in an industry that's kind of managing energy in buildings is an industry that's been sort of complacent for many years. Buildings are run pretty much like your thermostat in your apartment or your home, just reacting to the temperature. And some of those vendors who are in the space, they don't see a real need to change this. You know, as long as the customer is meeting their budget, as long as nobody's hot or cold, everything's just fine. So one thing we have to sometimes do is to create an awareness that there is a problem, that we're wasting energy. We're creating carbon pollution we don't need to create. To customers who aren't seeing this because their existing vendors are just kind of keeping them status quo. And it's because they don't necessarily have an interest in changing the way things work. These competitors, they have an existing position, and they're just sort of like, let's keep going along as it is. So that's a frustration for us. They're just looking at a continuation of the way things have occurred, and we're essentially trying to disrupt it for a social benefit. And that's the tough part for us. Somebody else?
I can talk about this briefly also. I think for us, there have definitely been other organizations coming out that are working on the same issue. I think in our space, we're happy that there are other people working on this because, you know, it's a big problem. It's bigger than us, and I think the more people working on it, the better. I also think, you know, I mean, you're absolutely right. There is competition for funding, but I think if kind of our philosophy is if we're doing an excellent job, the funding will be there, and if there's someone else that's doing it better, we should be learning from them. So I think it's a lot about seeing who else is doing what and seeing what you can learn from them, and if there's something that you can take and improve upon what you're already doing, you probably should. So I think it's just about trying to be the best you can be, and for us, make the biggest impact that you can.
I'll just step in here and say that we play dirty with anyone that competes against us. No, I'm just kidding. I think you framed the question very well, Marissa. That it's, for most of us, these are such nascent markets that they actually, you know, to speak in business school terms, this is about as much creating categories and building awareness, as Raphael was saying. That yeah, we're competing against the status quo. To the extent there's other innovators, there's obviously opportunities to learn from competitors, and so it doesn't feel like a zero-sum game. Probably, at least certainly for us, and I imagine for the other panelists. Yeah, and when it is a zero-sum game, that means there's so much work going on that these problems are being solved, and that's a great problem to have.
Beautifully put. So now we had one question from the audience, and then we're going to dive into our last few questions here. Going back to the beginning, when we talk about social impact, we talk about a social enterprise, we're throwing around a lot of terms here to describe what we do. someone asked us, what is the difference between a social enterprise and a social entrepreneur? When I think about students and how to answer this question, who would like to tackle this? Because I have one idea that's an answer. Would anyone like to jump in? To me, a social entrepreneur is one person who is leading a social enterprise. And a social enterprise consists of many social intrapreneurs, which are people who are within the organization who are driving change. So if you're a student and you're wondering what's the difference between a social enterprise and a social entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur might be the founder or co-founder or leader of the company. And a social enterprise is the company itself, and you are involved as an active social intrapreneur making change within the organization. Moving on to our next question. We talk about social missions and social impact. So say someone is working at a company, they're doing programming, they're doing developing. How do we make sure that everyone in the company, whether someone is an administrative assistant, whether someone is the founder, whether someone is the accountant or the marketeer, how do we know that everyone at the company, not just those on the front lines, feel connected to the mission? Who would like to jump in? I'm going to turn it to Melina.
Sure, happy to jump in. So I think there's something about creating a culture that integrates people, and no matter what you do, for the company or the organization, come together in order to talk about, what is important to the organization at that time. Like, what are your quarterly priorities, your monthly priorities? And for us, I think a lot of our focus is around our tech education program. And so I think naturally everything that we do supports that program. So whether you're a developer who is, and we have several developers on our team who also help out with instruction and curriculum for our program. And so obviously they do more front of the house stuff. That's not typically the term that we use, but they interact with the students. They provide teaching materials for Android development. And there's a lot of work that goes into supporting that. And so, my work is to be the liaison between our organization and government entities, so they know kind of the work that we're doing. There's people on our team who are doing fundraising for access code. A lot of it is also just keeping the conversation going so that all of us know what's going on. And it's about keeping a culture that is super connected to each other, and offline about their work. And I think we are very upfront about the mission and kind of what does that mean and how does that resonate with you as well. So I think we do a pretty good job of taking a step back and talking about all of those issues.
Great. Raphael, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Melina hit it on the head. It's got to start with the culture. The mission has to be embedded in the culture. I think a second step that we can take as leaders, though, is in terms of the metrics. Clearly, since we are a for-profit business, sales and revenue and adoption is important, but it's my job as the head of the company to talk also about carbon reduction or to talk about those benefits that are non-monetary or not profit-related. So I think as leaders of social enterprise, we've got to keep the organization focused on metrics that include our mission. And I think the really challenging thing is ultimately going to be when we all get larger. We're all in small enterprises, a handful of us here and a handful of us there. I think the challenge for us as leaders is going to be when it goes from 5 people to 500 or 5,000, how do we find the right mechanisms at each step of the way in terms of goal setting, in terms of metrics, and as Melina said, the right culture to keep the mission flourishing as the organization develops.
Great. Jeff?
Yeah, and I think I agree with both, Melina and Raphael's comments, and would add that speaking for myself, I think for everyone here, none of us have all the answers. This is uncharted territory. I think a lot about keeping engaged is about keeping people engaged in these questions and finding the answers together. I think that for me, defines a lot of the experience of being an entrepreneur. I think it also an earlier question about some of the trade-offs of these kinds of roles and opportunities versus more traditional ones. I think it also captures incredible learning opportunity that is possible in these kinds of organizations where you are, as Melina was describing, where you're not siloed into doing small, very limited sets of tasks, but you're talking to customers, you're designing products, your wireframes or coding, you're talking to funders. All those things are I think are part of what our small organizations do every day, and it's a huge opportunity to learn about so much more than you could in a big organization where your job description is set day one and you never dare stray from there. That's my pitch.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, let's talk about what would make someone the right fit for this type of organization, and what do you look for in a hire for your company or nonprofit, whether it's in terms of having job-relevant skills, a commitment or interest, a passion, whether it's something that someone might have studied and shown an interest in their extracurricular activities. What do you look for when you are looking to hire someone? Rebecca, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, and I can actually talk about this question from two angles, both about script ed hiring and then also what our internship partners look for, because I know a lot about that. So script ed, we're really looking for people that, we're a small team, so we want people that, and we are hiring right now. You can go on our website to find out more. But so scripted.org, we look for people that are first off on board with our mission, are really, really excited about the work that we're doing, that hopefully have some of the skills that we've asked for in the job descriptions. And then as a small team, we're really looking for people that are willing and excited and able to learn and try new things and kind of jump in as needed. We all have done things that are not the most fun part of any job, but in a small team that has to happen all the time. And then I think what I hear a lot specifically for tech roles from our internship partners is they are looking for people that have the basic coding skills that are necessary, but the biggest thing is an ability to learn and to learn on the go. Like most of the companies we work with talk about how you're going to have to learn, technology is changing all the time, you're going to have to learn something new. So it's about being able to be a continuous learner and to gain the skills that you need as you go. You definitely have to have the foundations, but if you can keep teaching yourself and be open to new things and seek out the knowledge that you need, that will go a long way.
Wonderful. Melina?
So we pride ourselves in diversity. All of our staff members come from different parts of the world. Not all of us are from Queens. I know that Coalition for Queens or C4Q may be a misnomer in that sense, but it's more so what Queens represents, which is the world's most diverse community. We also have different majors. I was an English major. My colleagues majored in computer science and physics. But I think most importantly, I think a lot of it is also what Becca said. It's mission fit above all else, and it's someone who's willing to learn on the job. For us, it's about people with high potential, and so I alluded to this earlier, but people who have demonstrated leadership skills, who can be put in a situation and figure it out, and are go-getters. We're also hiring for several positions as well. C4Q.nyc/careers is where you'll go for that. I mean, we're looking for people with technical backgrounds who also have a passion for teaching. Fundraising is a huge part of what we do. But I think there are also a lot of opportunities as it relates to policy and entrepreneurship and doing tech events and operations and marketing. So I think the diversity of opportunities at C4Q is also matched by the diversity of people in their backgrounds and interest and contributions.
Wonderful. Raphael, what do you think?
Yeah, I think all the comments have been really excellent. I'm just not going to try to repeat them. I mean, a couple of things, I heard about. One is, learning. We definitely look for diversity as well. A couple of more things. I mean, one is I'm looking for people who have competence in their domain. whether they're a technical person, a marketing person, a biz dev person. Do they really know their skills? It's also helpful if they have some demonstrated subject matter in the domain that we're in. Have they learned about energy's use in buildings, or environmental issues for buildings, or the technology involved? So people who, whether it's through extracurricular activities or internships, have found a way to learn more about this field they want to delve into shows a greater level of preparation than just anybody. I'm also big on values. I look for ethical people. I look for people who can get along with others, because we have to work together. So I think the whole person is really important when we make a hiring decision too. Thanks.
Wonderful. Jeff?
I agree with everything that's said. I think this, obviously sharing the mission, the values, the openness to learn, because we're not, what we need to know is going to change over time. I think the last thing I'd add is empathy. It's hugely valuable and not evenly distributed in the world. One realizes that being able to empathize, of course, with the team, but especially with our users and the people we're really trying to help, who often don't look like us, have different experiences than us. Right there, that creates a barrier of understanding. So really, it falls on us to go that extra mile and empathize and understand our users and the people we're trying to impact.
Beautiful. So we're going into our final moments together. Students, if you have any questions, please do send them to our Q&A section. We addressed one question already. Oh, we got one more question. Let's see. How do you know if someone really is on board with your mission? And how do you balance that against someone who's technically very talented? This is a really interesting question. Personally, the way I think, if someone is really on board, they're going to be there through thick and thin. They're not out just to make a quick buck. They are here to see the company forward with its mission. They're dedicated and committed, and they'll probably be in this industry for the long term because of their values, passions, and beliefs. But that's just me. Who would like to jump in and take this next? Feel free to jump in.
Whoops.
Raphael, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, one thing I would add to that is I think in an organization, everybody may not have the same level of personal engagement with the mission. So I would say, at least they have to believe in it and be supporting it. They may not, they may not be as far down the path as someone else, but I think to me, they can't ever take actions that actually work against it. And they have to support it. I think with any team and with people of different experience levels, you're going to have some people who are more or less, or more or less in terms of the passion, how it's evidenced. But I think as long as the core values are there and they're working in support of it, it may not always be as visible. That's just a thought here. There's such diversity in personality types, everybody may not exhibit it in the same way, but there has to be a level set.
Okay, let's do some closing thoughts. Some things that we're seeing here, starting from the top, is when we think about social impact, we think about ways that our social enterprises are creating change in the world to solve social problems, to improve the different social themes that we have, from environment, health, education, social equity, and to do so sustainably through our social missions. People who really believe, who are values, who are passionate, will thrive in these areas. Who else would like to add some closing thoughts? Melina?
Sure. I mean, I would encourage for those who do know what they want to do in life, and I also, to go forward and pursue that passion. Especially if you do have the technical skills and you can code, I think there's a lot of different industries that you can enter and where you can have lasting impact. For those of you who don't quite know, what your interest is or what your career pathway may hold, I would say pay attention to what you do that like makes you happy or that interests you or even gets your blood boiling. I think knowing yourself, particularly knowing how to position yourself, is important and can be a major differentiator between you and other candidates. And I guess lastly on that point, it's important, I think, to share and to meet people who share your interest, but also surrounding yourself with people who share the same magnitude of passion as you, especially people from diverse backgrounds, very different interests and majors. I think there's important lessons to learn from all sorts of people.
Great. Jeffrey?
Yeah, and I think in some ways to build on the Raphael's last point, yeah, I don't think any of us have a litmus test for alignment with our missions. I think a lot of this is about passion and wanting to make the world, generally speaking, a better place. We don't necessarily expect everyone understands our theory of change, how Upraised hopes to make the world a better place, and certainly that's part of coming on and joining the organization. But I think what we hope to find is people that share our passion for making the world a better place, generally speaking. And I think that for us is enough because we can make the case for why this one path is a high leverage one to have that impact.
Great, Raphael.
Sure. I just like to add one thing. I just was thinking a bit about the diversity of panelists here and the different types of ways you can have an impact. I mean, as you're coming out of school, and especially, don't think it has to be just one thing. It doesn't mean you have to join a startup like we did. You may work for a large company in the sustainability program and understand how companies do it in-house. You may work for a nonprofit that's studying things like a think tank. People who have a passion for an area across the arc of their career find many different ways to contribute. So it's not just one thing. And each activity, a nonprofit, a large company, an entrepreneurial venture, can all sort of reinforce each other and give you different skills to sort of build towards your ultimate career in that field.
Beautiful. And Rebecca?
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to say I've found this panel very inspiring, and I think it's I don't know. We know now that, or studies at least are showing that young people are interested in finding work that's meaningful to them, and even will take a pay cut in order to feel connected to the work that they're doing. And I think tech especially is a way in which you can find that. I think if you, like Melina was saying, if you know how to code, there are so many different ways that you can apply that. You could work for a fashion company doing sustainable fashion. You could do a whole variety of things. And even if you don't know how to code, there are still a lot of companies that are working on really, really cool problems. And I think this panel is quite representative of that in the just in the people that we have here today. So I think, like Melina was saying, find what you're interested in, find what drives you, try something if you're not sure, and then keep doing the things that you like to do.
Beautiful, Rebecca. Building on that, personally, when I think of the tech community and I think of the people I know, I think in using technology, using our interconnectedness, using things that bring us closer together like the internet, social media, the web, there's already this concept of community built in. So a lot of the people that I meet in the tech community are very community-minded, and therefore already thinking about how to improve the lives of others and how to improve social impact and social issues. So I think it's a really natural fit, and I hope people watching this will be inspired to research social impact careers and take advantage of resources out there. One resource I'd just like to share with you is that everyone who is watching today, I'd love to invite you to Impact Hub in New York to just spend a free week with us. If you are looking to start a new social enterprise or you've got a new idea you want to work on, you can go to impacthubnyc.com/free week. And if any of you are doing a social impact crowdfunding campaign, we're offering a month of free co-working space. So you can go to impacthubnyc.com/crowd to learn more. But thank you so much. I think that overall, people in tech, if you're interested in social impact, if you're interested in social good, there's really never been a better time to get involved, and the industry is really growing. And even if we look at just this past week with the IPO of big organizations like Etsy coming into the market, it's really great news for social enterprises right now. So we would really love to welcome you and your skills and your imagination everything that you're capable of into this world. So I think that's it, and we're going to sign off. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you. Thank you.